Hello, this is Bob Mayer and welcome to my survival series. In this video, we're going to cover power outages. We've all experienced them. We're all going to experience them again. So I'm going to talk about preparing for them and what to do while they're occurring. They can occur for a lot of different reasons. Down power lines is probably the most common one, but there's rolling blackouts now, especially with the summer during the heat waves when everybody's using air conditioning. Certain locales have to do brownouts in certain areas. Another thing is, and I've done a lot of research on this, is the power grid is very vulnerable to attack, whether it's a computer virus or physical attack. We're seeing people now shooting up power substations. And sadly, it's a lot more vulnerable than people realize. Other causes: EMP, electromagnetic pulse, solar flare, or nuclear weapon going off. Cold weather caused a power outage down in Texas a couple of years ago that killed a lot of people. Sabotage and terrorism, I mentioned. That's going to be increasing because it's everywhere and it's a vulnerable target. Like all preparation, it's too late to prepare once the outage occurs. Okay, so you have to think about it now. Sit down and think through what you're going to do if you have an extended power outage. A lot of people who were affected by Hurricane Sandy, some of my relatives talked about this, how they were very unprepared for what happened afterwards. So let's talk about some gear that you probably should have. Flashlights and spare batteries. That sounds simple, but think about it. Do you have these? I carry a AAA flashlight on my belt with my Leatherman all the time. The thing in the middle is both a lighter and a flashlight, rechargeable. All this gear at the end, I'll show you a way you can get links to all this gear. Headlamps are really good. I use these not just for in the house. I use them for working. I use them for camping. I keep a set in my day pack when I'm walking because if you get stuck out there at night, it leaves your hands free. I have both a rechargeable one and a battery-powered one. The thing about rechargeable ones is have a power bank. This is very useful, keeping your cell phone running, keeping your flashlight running. This one here is the one I've linked to in my gear list. And the reason I do that is on the back, it has the cables built in. There's nothing worse than having a power bank and not having the right cables to hook up to things. I have an entire presentation on solar power. I'm just going to touch on a few small things that I think you should have up to a base level. I have solar panels. I have 4 fixed solar panels, and I have 2 flexible 100-watt solar panels. I keep the flexible solar panels on my Jeep Gladiator between the cab and the body. I have all the cables up top on the rack. I have a Goal Zero 400. I noticed they don't make the 400 anymore. It's a 500 now. I plug it into the back in there, the back of the Jeep. I have videos on this too. Keeping it charged all the time, and I have 2 separate batteries I can hook up to that I can also charge. I keep those charged all the time in case of a power outage. If you have medical gear that requires power, make sure you have the battery capability to keep that running for a while if you need to. People did die during the Texas power outage without oxygen or other things they needed. CPAP machines, a CPAP not running can be a life-threatening thing. Generators, during hurricanes, when the power goes out, most deaths occur because of generators. Make sure they're properly vented, okay? And yes, my wife and I had this argument many times. The more power you draw from a generator, the more fuel you use. And it's not running at a level thing. It's like a car. If you draw more fuel, it's accelerating. It's burning more propane or gas or diesel. Carbon monoxide can kill, so always be aware of what you're doing. Don't run a car inside a garage with the door shut. If you're going to use your car to charge things back up, make sure it's vented, it's outside. Carbon monoxide is very, very dangerous. Here are the signs of carbon monoxide. But a lot of times if you're asleep, you're never going to know what happened. Water. I always go back to water, making sure you have plenty of water. If you have an extended power outage across a wide area, your water's not going to flow, especially if you have a local power outage and you require a pump, you're on well water, your pump's not going to work. So this is something to think about. How are you going to get water if there's an extended power outage? Go back to my basic preparation, at least 2 cases of water per person in the household, stored in a closet somewhere. Big fan of filter. After 80% of natural disasters, the water is an issue. So pump filter, a gravity filter, I just think it's a really smart idea to have one there for a lot of different reasons, not just power outages. Food is not as much a priority. You can go 2 weeks without food. I know you don't want to, but you could if you had to. If you're in a 2-week power outage, you got bigger problems, probably. But I have a link to these Mountain House meals. They made the LRP, long-range patrol meals we had in the Special Forces that we used to eat. Emergency rations bars. If you ever tasted one, they taste like sawdust. There's a variety of them. I cover those more in grab and go bag and under food. Have a way of cooking your food in boiling water if you need to. I just have that cheap stove there and use the little canisters of fuel there. You don't need a very big sophisticated rig going. Survival radio, a lot of people don't think of this, but you could lose your cell phone coverage if it's an extended power outage. The towers won't have power. This will be a way, and you won't have your Wi-Fi, you won't have your cable, you won't have your internet. This is a way of finding out information. And the one I recommend has a little solar thing on the back so you could actually charge it a little bit. There are people these days who don't know what a landline is. They don't know what a rotary phone is. I'm not saying you have to have a rotary phone, but a landline's not a bad idea in case of power outage. Always have a first aid kit. That's one of the 4 primary things you should have for all preparation. Cash. This may sound funny, but your computers aren't going to be working. Your cash registers aren't going to be working. Your ATMs aren't going to be working. You're going to be living in a cash environment for quite a while. People mention this who've been in extended power outages, how they wish they had more cash on hand. Do you know where the manual release on your garage door is to open and close it? Again, do not run your car in the garage door for heating or cooling. Always keep your car topped off. This is a thing from the military I learned because gas stations do rely on electricity to pump. I've seen a number of images from extended power outages, always lines at gas stations, the ones that manage to have power, if they've got a generator or whatever. And I'm also a fan of storing extra gas. I keep at least a gas tank worth of extra gas stored at all times. During a power outage, stay away from down power lines, okay? I think these are really scary. If a live wire hits the ground, the power goes in all directions, especially if you're in a storm and there's water. That water will transmit the power. By the way, don't drive through where there's down power lines. Yeah, your rubber tires may go over it, but it could get caught up in the wheel well and hit the car and travel through the metal of the car. Do you have a way to keep warm in cold weather or cool in hot weather without power? I did a area study for somebody, and we talked about if you live in Phoenix, what would you do if you lost power for 7 days in Phoenix in the middle of the summer when the temperature is 110 degrees? There's no place to go to get cool. What are you going to do? Do you know how to do you use gas or propane for heating? Do you have pilot light if it's an electric igniter? Close all your shades. Go lower for cool. Basement is best. Don't use gas grills inside. You have the same carbon monoxide problem. For heat, wear clothes in layers. It's always better. Never use your oven as a source of heat. Keep your refrigerator and freezer doors closed. An unopened freezer will keep for about 48 hours. Only use as absolute necessary. And with the power off, turn off and disconnect those things you don't want to get blown if there's a power surge and the power comes back on. For an extended power outage, this one you have to really think through. What in your house relies on power? Do you have a septic system with a septic pump? Does that rely on power? Yeah, well water, that require power. Can you draw it via a hand pump? Cell phone service might be out for a considerable period of time. There's a whole series of things you have to think about. I walk you through those in my preparation and survival guide. You know, how will your family get together? Do you have your IRP, your immediate rallying point, your ERP, your emergency rally point? Do you have your out-of-area contact that people can get a hold of? They can't get a hold of each other. This is all part of preparation. Afterwards, throw away frozen food that is thawed out. You can't refreeze it. And if your medications are spoiled, there are medications that require power, that require to be kept in the refrigerator or frozen. That's something to think about also beforehand. And then restock your emergency supplies. Because whenever you use up an emergency supply, it's pretty much a given. You're going to need it again relatively soon. Bottom line, be prepared. On my website, if you click on that box there, it's a pop-up, and underneath it is a document with direct links to all the free apps, websites, gear I list, for all sorts of preparation and survival. There are my various books. The Area Study Workbook is a bit underrated, but it's really important. One of the things you'll be looking at is things like, are your power lines buried? Makes a big difference in things. Where's your power coming from? What kind of grid are you on? If you're in Texas, you're in a separate grid, except from the El Paso area, from the rest of the country. That's why Texas had a big problem when they had that power outage in winter a couple of years ago. Little black books are full of interesting things. And here's my brief background. Stay safe out there, people.